And April the 15th, Nissan 15, is Passover. I want to spend some time tonight just providing some information, some psychoeducation concerning Passover. So I just want you to sit back, relax, enjoy the broadcast, put your feet up, just take it easy. It's my pleasure to be here with you. Once again, we're talking about the Passover. Welcome to your YouTube channel. Tonight, one of the greatest events is about to take place. The commemoration of the Passover. Without a doubt, the Passover is one of the greatest events that has ever taken place on earth. When you understand the significance of the Passover, it can change your life. Unfortunately, few people know about the Passover and the significance that it holds for mankind. Many people know about Easter, which focuses on the goddess of fertility, Ashra. And that's why we have rabbits, because rabbits tend to produce very, very quickly. We have Easter eggs and Easter bunnies. The Passover comes out of Exodus chapter 12. The Israelites spent over 400 years in Egypt. The name Egypt means Mitzrayim, a place of narrowness, a place of restriction. In every generation, we must seek to redeem ourselves and others from the straits of life, poverty, spiritual darkness, ignorance, lack of knowledge of the Creator, the Divine One. Rid ourselves of prejudice, illness, discrimination, hatred, social injustice. In Egypt, the Israelites were treated bitterly by Pharaoh. To be a slave to someone or something that is evil is painful. In Exodus chapter 3, we read, "And the Lord said, I have surely seen the affliction of my people who are in Egypt, and have given heed to their cry because of their taskmasters, for I am aware of their sufferings." In verse 9, it says, "And now behold, the cry of the sons of Israel has come to me. Furthermore, I have seen the oppression with which the Egyptians are oppressing them." As we move forward to chapter 12, the Passover begins to emerge. God inflicted 9 plagues on the Egyptians, but Pharaoh refused to let Israel go and worship their God. With the 10th plague and the final one, which is the death of the firstborn of the Egyptians, of people, and the firstborn of their cattle, Pharaoh had no choice but to let the Israelites leave Egypt. Before the last plague, God told the Israelites to take a lamb, which was an Egyptian deity, and kill the lamb at twilight. Then God said, "Take some of the blood and put it on the doorposts of your house on the 2 sides and on the lintel of the houses in which they eat it." Once they applied the blood, to the doorposts of their house. God would pass over. He would skip over their house at night. And because the blood was applied to their house, the destroying angel would not kill them. In verse 12 to 13, God says, "For I will go through the land of Egypt on that night and will strike down all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast, and against all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgment. I am the Lord." Remember, the lamb represented an Egyptian deity. And verse 13 says, "And the blood shall be a sign for you on the houses where you live. And when I see the blood, I will pass over you." Skip over, jump over, and no plague will befall you to destroy you when I strike the land of Egypt. Verse 29, it says, "Now it came about at midnight that the Lord struck all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh, who sat on his throne, to the firstborn of the captive, who is in the dungeon, and all the firstborn of cattle." Verse 30, "And Pharaoh arose in the night, he and all his servants, and all the Egyptians, and there was a great cry in Egypt, for there was no home where there was not someone found dead." We are told in Exodus 12 on numerous occasions to observe the Passover as an ordinance, which is a custom, something that is strictly obeyed for you and your children forever. So it's an ordinance that stands all of time. The Passover is full of meaning, imagery, and steeped with spiritual imagery. The focus is on freedom, a new beginning, and redemption. Israel now becomes a nation. The Passover conveys 5 major concepts that provide a compass on how to lead a successful and productive life. These are important things to know about Passover, and incorporating them in your daily life will have a positive impact on your life to others, because your life will be the only Bible that someone will read. Passover conveys significant concepts. As Jewish Hebrew believers, we've been privileged to fulfill in great measure our divine and prophetically mandated role, which is to become a light unto the nations. Now, here are the 5 concepts that help to enhance the world: memory, optimism, faith, family, and responsibility to others. So let me talk a little bit about memory. Memory is extremely important because it helps us to reconstruct our lives. Without memory, we have no idea of our history. The Passover is all about history, His story, which is God's story, and memory. God says, remember that you are strangers in Egypt. Remember that the Lord took you out of bondage of slavery. Remember is a biblical mandate that had never seemed important to anyone else before the Jewish people. It was the Passover story that focused on a commitment to memory. History is the only way we can learn from the past. Make a mistake once and you're human. Never learn from what happened from that mistake, and that will create a problem for you in your life. We know how terrible it can be to live without a personal memory of events that have occurred in our lives. For an individual who is struggling with memory and memory loss, we say that they have Alzheimer's or dementia, which fills us with tremendous fear and sadness. It's a disease that we fear perhaps even more than death because it leaves us as living corpses. Without memory, it makes it almost impossible to reconstruct your life. I spoke with a friend of mine. His older brother was experiencing some memory loss, and he was telling me how he couldn't even remember his bank accounts. He couldn't remember where he put things. He wasn't able to recognize family members. So a loss of memory is really sad. So the Passover invites us to remember where we came from. Memory links our past to our future. It turns history into destiny. The memory of the Passover is an important part of history. Once again, his story. Number 2, let's look at the importance of optimism. To study the Passover in depth is to realize that the most difficult task Moses had to perform was not to get the Jews out of Egypt, but to get Egypt out of the Jews. You've heard the old story, the old saying, you can take the man out of the hood, but you can't take the hood out of the man. The Jews had become so accustomed to their status as slaves that they lost all hope that they could ever become free. Without hope, they would have been lost. So optimism is an important part of the Passover. The true miracle of Passover and its relevance for today and the ages is the message that with God's help, no difficulty is insurmountable. With God, we can conquer things, especially demons and struggles that we have in our lives. Whatever you are going through right now, know that with God's help, it will make a difference in your life. And you can conquer struggles, demons, difficult obstacles with his help. A tyrant like Pharaoh could be overthrown and subdued. So you can have success over pharaohs in your life. A nation as powerful as Egypt could be defeated. Slaves could become free men. So whatever shackles you are experiencing today, with God on your side, you can break free of those shackles. It was the biblical record of the Exodus that enabled the spirit of optimism to prevail for the followers of Martin Luther King Jr. in their pursuit for equal rights became because they were moved by the vision of Moses leading the people to the promised land. Now let's look at the importance of faith. Jewish optimism is steeped in a contrary notion, a firmly held belief that we are blessed with support from above by a caring God. The faith in a personal God infuses faith in ourselves, in others, in our future, and in our ability to help change the world, which we call tikkun olam, to make the world a better place. Efforts to improve the world, because right now, you know that our world needs improving. We look at the situation in Russia and Ukraine. The world needs major improvements. So Jewish optimism is important. Faith gives us the certainty that whatever our present day struggles and problems, history moves in the direction of the final messianic redemption. Let's talk a moment about the importance of the family, another important variable in Passover. Passover teaches us the importance of the family system. The way for us to perfect the world is to begin with our own families. What's going on in your family today? How are things going? But the way to perfect the world begins with our own families. It seems all too obvious, but children are our future. They are the ones who most require our love and our attention. The family is where we first form our identities and learn important values and morals, which will govern our adult behavior. It's important to understand the primacy of the family, especially at Passover. Without the family, society would cease to exist. The family is the building blocks of society. Take this time at Passover to place value on your family, your parents, your children, your siblings, your aunts, uncles, nieces, nephews. Place emphasis on the family. Parents, nurture your children and encourage them and be the best that you can be. Be positive models for your children and your family, because they will always watch what you do, more so than listen to what you have to say. But they're watching what you do. Now, the importance of the responsibility of others. As we celebrate the Passover and our divine deliverance from the slavery of Egypt, a serious question must be asked. We thank God for getting us out of Egypt, but why did God allow us to experience such cruelty, abuse, and misery in the first place? Here's the answer. So that we can have empathy for those who are despised, downtrodden in every generation. We were strangers in Egypt, and we have to be concerned with the rights of the strangers, the orphans, and the widows, the weak, the poor, the sick. We must learn to personally identify with the pain and struggles of others. That's a great lesson from the Passover. The purpose of our ancestors' sufferings in Egypt was to turn us into a people committed to fighting the wrongs of the world, to become partners with God in making the world a better place to live in, but more importantly, to to prepare the world for the final redemption. The purpose of our ancestors' sufferings in Egypt was to turn us into a people committed to righting the wrongs of the world and to become partners with God in making the world a better place to live. That's responsibility to others. As we celebrate the Passover and our divine deliverance from the slavery of Egypt, we just have to be thankful for what God has done for us by getting us out. He redeemed us from a life of slavery, a life in Mitzrayim. So a lot of us, unfortunately, are still in Egypt. We're in bondage. We're in slavery. We're slaves to certain behaviors that we can't get rid of. But remember, with God, all things are possible. In closing, Passover is a time of self-examination. We have to do some introspection. We have to look deep inside of ourselves and ask poignant questions such as, what sin, what leaven do I need to get rid of as I move into Passover? What are the things that I'm struggling with that's causing me harm? So as we embrace the season of Passover, take a look at yourself. Do some introspection. Look into the mirror. What do we need to get rid of before Passover? We are in a season and a time of renewal of our redemption from bondage, a renewal of our freedom. God wants to liberate us as we move into Passover. Once again, the Passover is one of the greatest events that took place on earth. And tomorrow night, we commemorate the Passover. The very first Passover that took place in Egypt, in Mitzrayim, God put a full moon in the sky. And every Passover thereafter, he commemorates the Passover by putting a full moon in the sky. So look at the moon and its brightness tomorrow and a few days after. And remember the Passover and the significance. And once again, the Passover is a season of renewal, a season of new beginnings. I know that for some of us, we are really, really struggling right now. But redemption is here. It's the season of the Passover. Enjoy the Passover. Celebrate with your family. And in conclusion, I say, Baruch Hashem, which means, blessed is his name. Good night.